Oh my God, I didn't tell you. I got a hamster.
Why?
Because she was so cute. Went to the pet shop and I never go to the pet shop without Lee, the one that's near us, because it's walking distance. So we walk down there, she gets some treats. Never needed to go without her. But there was one time that I was getting off the train and I thought, oh, quickly go to the pet shop and pick up a bag of dog food. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go downstairs to the little fairy section because I don't usually go there when Lee's with me.
Fairy?
Furry.
Oh, furry. I was like,
Furry. And I went down there and there's this sweet little hamster just sitting, looking at me like this.
what have you
And
called her?
her name is Cheeks Cafecita con Leche because she's the colour of coffee and milk. And she puts stuff in her cheeks. She's super cute. I'll send you a
That's
picture.
very cute.
But anyway, this case today.
Hi, my name's Catherine.
Oh yeah, and I'm
that's
Rosie.
Rosie. And welcome to our podcast.
This is 26 to life. After 26 years of friendship, we have officially been together for longer than a life sentence.
Yeah, we have, baby. And every week we recap true crime stories. And I feel like our last 2, 3 have been really freaking horrific. So
Yeah, this one's not as horrific. This is more of like a mind fuck.
oh, nice. This episode contains, go on.
Murder, mentions of suicide,
Not as horrific. Huh?
mental illness. Yeah, that's it, pretty much.
Wow. Sounds really tame.
Yeah, really tame. So, we'll start the story on the 20th of May, 2008. At around 7:51 p.m, Staffordshire police get a call about a stabbing that had taken place on Duke Street in Stoke-on-Trent. Do you know Stoke-on-Trent?
I've heard of it. I don't know where it is. Don't know where Staffordshire is either.
It's the birthplace of Robbie Williams, but still, that's no big deal. It's basically smack bang in the middle of England. It's what?
Is that why he's got a funny accent?
He hasn't got a funny accent. He sounds perfect. So it's in the middle. It's kind of like near Nottingham. It's not that far from Nottingham, actually.
But isn't Nottingham in the north?
No, Nottingham is Midlands. It's literally in East Midlands.
I feel like I'm going up north, so I feel like it's the north of the country.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not north.
Okay.
Anyway, the victim was a middle-aged man and he had been stabbed several times in the chest. While the first responders were on their way to the scene, the police were also receiving multiple reports of a woman covered in blood and wandering the streets with what looked at the time to be an axe or a hammer in her hand, and some even said that she was hitting herself in the head with said hammer.
Oh my God.
Just a few minutes later, another call came in. The woman had jumped off of a bridge and onto the A50, which was 40 feet below. An A road, I mean, I don't know how people in other countries name roads, but A roads are kind of like motorways, but slightly smaller, so they don't have as many lanes, but it's still busy traffic. It's still national
carriageway.
speed. Yeah, it's a national speed limit. So people go
60.
A road. Well, yeah, but it's still a national speed limit. If it's got the sign,
but it's national speed limit. It's
but
different
it's
in everywhere.
Yeah, but either way. So those first of the scene found a woman. She was still alive and she had a passport on her, identifying her as Sabina Eriksson. She was taken directly to the University Hospital of North Staffordshire. She had broken both of her ankles and suffered a fracture to her skull. But her injuries were not life-threatening and she was conscious and talking while she was on her way to the hospital. Yeah.
That's actually really... I was about to say, is
40
that it?
feet? That's crazy.
Yeah, I hurt myself just getting out of bed.
Yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about it. Meanwhile, back at Duke Street, the police found that the man that had been stabbed had died and had identified him as 54-year-old Glenn Hollinshead. Within his home, they recovered a 4-inch knife with a broken blade within the kitchen, as well as several blood splatters nearby.
I'm confused.
What are you confused about?
Was he murdered in a house?
On Duke Street. You'll hear more about this.
Sorry, you said on Duke Street. I thought you meant like out in the street, and then I was like, why do we care what's in his house? Okay, cool. Yeah, go on.
So, The front door was secure, so there's no forced entry, and although they conducted door-to-door inquiries, none of the neighbours seemed to really have seen anything in the lead up to the incident that would explain what happened.
Where's a nosy neighbour when you need one, eh?
Tell me about it. Upon investigation, police learned that this isn't where the story actually begins. So there are Sabina. Oh, that looks so cute. Sabina actually had a twin. Sabina and Ursula Eriksson were born in 1967 in Sweden. They grew up there and had pretty normal lives from what anyone could gather. By the year 2000, Ursula was living in the USA and Sabina had settled in County Cork in Ireland. There was no history of juvenile delinquency. They didn't have any kind of reported mental illnesses. They didn't have any signs of abuse or anything like that. And they didn't have any other criminal convictions before this point. So on Friday, May 16th in 2008, Ursula travelled from the States to Ireland to visit her twin sister, and they decided to go on holiday together to England. So I've seen different reports of this. Some have said that they kind of left in the middle of the night and Sabina's husband had no idea where they were. Others said that it was kind of pre-planned, but either way, they got the ferry from Ireland to Liverpool and arrived on the morning of Saturday 17th. So I read around 8:30 a.m. So they were getting an early ferry. What were you going to ask?
I didn't realise Liverpool had a port. I thought it was... No.
Oh, yeah.
Is it on the coast?
Yeah. Oh. You can still get that ferry across even now. You can go
study a map. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, you probably should if we're doing a UK true crime podcast.
I'm learning a lot. I think I could kind of draw a map now.
No, you definitely couldn't. Let's do that. You draw a map and I'll put it on this screen when I post this podcast episode.
Okay, I will.
Good. So they arrived in Liverpool around 8:30 is what I read, and they went straight to the police station to report welfare concerns for Sabina's children back in Ireland.
What?
Yeah, which was obviously, people were like, why did they go all the way to England to Liverpool, of all places, and leaving her children in Ireland to then report that she was worried about her children?
What a shit holiday.
Yeah, it's so true.
You can't call that a holiday.
No, definitely. Well, I mean, Nan went to Liverpool once. She loves
No, I mean,
Liverpool.
you can't... No, you can go to Liverpool. Is Nan still there?
Yeah,
no, you can go to Liverpool for your holiday. I have no objection to that. I take umbrage with the fact that they went to the police station to report welfare concerns about her children on holiday.
That was the first thing that they did as well. It was very odd, but this was just the beginning. So the Liverpudlian police checked in with the County Cork police, who did a welfare check on the kids who had been left with Sabina's partner, who presumably is their dad, and they said that the kids were fine, and so Sabina and Ursula carried on their way. That was that. Very odd, but nobody thought anything of it. Around 11:30 a.m, they hopped on a coach towards London.
Hold on.
Classic. Go on.
They could have easily done a welfare check of like, my kids are at home with my husband. I'm worried. I've gone away, and now like no one's answering the phone. My kid hasn't. It wasn't like it wasn't. I was trying to find a saving grace, but never mind. Okay.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like that at all. Especially considering the fact that I had found reports to say that she had left in the middle of the night. And her husband had called around trying to find out where his wife was, and then
there's nothing about domestic violence.
Nothing at
Abuse.
All. Apparently her husband was concerned and was trying to figure out where his wife had gone, and then he finds out that she's called the police in Liverpool and is worried about the welfare of her children. So around 11:30 they hopped on a coach towards London, but within a couple of hours the coach driver said that they were acting odd. And now again, reports were different. So some had said that the twins had asked them to stop because they were feeling unwell, and others said that the driver had stopped because they were feeling uncomfortable with the twins' behaviour. But either way, it was an unplanned stop at Kiel Services, which is just outside of Stoke-on-Trent, and they weren't allowed back on the coach. So it was said that they refused to put their bags in that hold underneath the coach. So you know, in most coaches, there's like the door you lift up and they slide all the bags underneath. They refused to put their bags under there, but they also refused to have their bags searched. So they were acting erratically and all of this weird, suspicious behaviour. Somebody even mentioned that there were fears that they had explosives. So the coach left without them. The police were called, but after some chats with the twins, they did like a quick interrogation kind of thing, and they deemed them a non-threat and again just left them on their way.
So didn't search their bags.
Didn't search their bags, but pretty much just said, no, there's nothing to worry about here. So Sabina and Ursula Eriksson began making their own way towards London on foot in the central reservation of the M6. So for those that don't know, the central reservation is that bit in the middle of the motorway which separates the north and southbound traffic.
The bit that you definitely shouldn't be walking on.
Shouldn't be walking on.
If you have a crash or you break down, they tell you to stand behind barriers.
Yeah.
Like 100 metres away. I don't know, that was a made up number, but like as far away as you possibly can.
Exactly.
So that you're not... Right.
But basically, that reservation is there, so if there is a crash, it shouldn't impact the traffic going in the opposite direction. But it's not there for pedestrians. It is not there as a path for people to walk on.
No, that is not a relaxing walk.
No, not at all. The M6 is also known to be the longest motorway in the UK, and is said to be the busiest too. But I don't know if it's the busiest based on the fact that it is so long, so there are naturally more people going on it from top to bottom. But either way, very busy motorway, and that's 4 lanes of traffic. So soon after, the twins then begin running into the oncoming traffic. They're trying to cross the roads, they're causing havoc. The traffic police were called, and by coincidence the traffic police actually had a film crew with them because they were filming traffic cops. Did you ever watch that?
No, but I know what it is.
Yeah, it's literally, they're just filming
that
people
would be
getting
my
pulled
worst
over.
Freaking nightmare. Do you know once I forgot to pay my MOT and I had a panic attack because I got pulled over?
Mm-hmm.
My worst nightmare would be like if there was a film crew with them. I'd be like, you're not filming me on, like, this is the worst I'm ever going to break. So can we just not?
And it would be so typical that you'd get pulled over when you're wearing your pyjamas, you've got your hair in rollers.
I wasn't, actually. I had my hair in bunches. I remember exactly what I was wearing, and I was wearing dungarees, and I...
It was cute.
Yeah, it was cute, but I also probably looked about 12.
Yeah, they probably thought, you're definitely too young to be driving.
And also just, what an idiot. Like, she's just an idiot. Do you know what I mean? And it was on my road.
Oh, that's so close but so far.
So close but so far, and they wouldn't let me move my car to outside my house. How extra.
What, did they clamp you or something?
No, they were like, I was like, my house is there, can I move it so it's outside my house so I don't get a ticket? And they were like, no. And then the guy was like, yes, you can. Like, that's ridiculous. I was like, you can watch me drive. I'm just going to drive 6 car parking spaces.
Yeah, or just be like, I'll put it in neutral and you can push me then.
Yeah.
So they had received reports of these women being hit by traffic multiple times. So when they arrived at the scene, they were expecting, you know, there's going to be a bloodbath. They're going to be injured and laying on the side of the road, and it's going to be chaos. But they were surprised to see that the twins were just calm, standing on the side of the road, chatting, smoking, chill, as if nothing. Hit? I think they had been hit, but just not a scratch on them. Yeah. Nothing. It was as if nothing had happened. They were like, the only weird thing was that they were standing on the side of the road without a vehicle in the middle of the M6, but otherwise totally fine. But then, so everything that happened next was caught on camera, but I couldn't find any original footage anywhere because it had all been removed under copyright conditions. So it had all been removed. It said it was the same company. It was called like, I can't remember what it was called, but it was the same company that had, what's the word when you say something's copyright infringed? Basically reported it of copyright infringement, and it was the same company that had been listed like, we can't post this because of this company.
Was there not the episode of like traffic cops on this?
I couldn't even find that. I couldn't find anything, but there was a whole episode of it, because once all of this shit was happening, they were like, okay, we have We have to
I
follow
want to
this through.
find it.
I couldn't find anything at all. Or even on the BBC website, it just said this episode is no longer available. So there was it was so frustrating. But I did see a few YouTube videos of other people doing a similar case, and they had some of that original footage, and that was the only way that I could see it. But basically, in this footage, you can see Ursula bolting out again into the oncoming traffic. So 1 minute she's just standing there smoking a cigarette talking to a police officer, and she all of a sudden, out of nowhere, runs into oncoming traffic. One of the officers tries to grab her coat to stop, but she basically slips her arms out of it and runs straight into an articulated lorry, which was going at around 56 miles per hour. So one of the big 18-wheeler lorries, not dead, but she did roll underneath it. Legs were completely crushed. Both of her legs are broken.
What is happening?
What is happening? Sabina also runs out onto the motorway.
Are they identical?
Yeah.
Okay, so did the police... How do we know which one's which at this point? Did the police know, or is it not till afterwards we know?
I don't think it's until after that we know, but in the videos, Sabina is wearing red and Ursula is wearing green. So it's quite easy to distinguish them both. So Sabina also runs out into the motorway and was hit by a saloon car, which some people said it was a red Seat, some people said Volkswagen Polo, but that kind of car, just kind of like a normal hatchback.
It's a car. We had this
car.
Conversation before. Do you remember when I did the Millie Dowler episode and it was like a red hatchback? And I was like, oh, what's that? It's a car.
It's a car. It's just your bog standard car. I mean, when you think of Volkswagen Polo, it is literally just the car. Yeah.
If a 3-year-old draws a car, that's how they draw it.
Yeah. 5 doors, 4 wheels,
Yeah.
Boot, windshield. Same thing. So she was thrown up into the air like a little rag doll and landed on the windshield of the car, completely smashed. Both of the twins were knocked unconscious, but when police tried to help them, they soon began thrashing about. There was spitting, punching, scratching, screaming. Despite
one of them's lost both her legs.
Yeah, Ursula had broken both of her legs and she was still resisting medical help, but she was soon immobilised and airlifted to a local hospital. Sabina was more difficult to get under control. Even though she'd been thrown into the air, smashed into the windshield of the car, she somehow still didn't have any major injuries. What? How? When she was struggling to get away from the police, she punched the police officer in the face, and she tried to run again into the opposite lane of traffic. And all the while they were trying to get away from the police, they were both yelling for help from the police, saying, "Help, help, police," but also saying things like, "I recognise you, I know you're not real." And then also yelling to each other, they're trying to steal your organs. So they were in this weird delusional state.
Like a drug trip?
Right? I mean, this is what everyone was thinking. Everyone was thinking they were high, they were drunk, they were on something. This is not normal. Not only do they have superhuman human strength, but they're also calling out these really deranged kind of mental,
paranoid things. They're stealing your organs, run
and asking for the police, even though it's the police that they've just punched in the face and trying to get away from. It's so backwards. So it eventually took 5, maybe 6 people to eventually restrain Sabina, and they were both taken to hospital. But after just 5 hours, it was deemed that Sabina was totally fine, and then she was arrested and taken to the police station. So there was no psychiatric mental evaluation, anything like that. 5 hours, they said, nope, she's good, you're free to arrest her. They thought
I don't understand. They went into the hospital. She's good as in she's got no injuries, or she's good as in there's nothing mentally wrong with her, you can arrest her. They didn't do a mental evaluation. So they just deemed just
that basically on physically, she's totally fine, exactly. So they thought that at the police station she was going to be aggressive because obviously the way that she was fighting back and kicking and screaming, but she was surprisingly charming. She made a joke about how her feet might smell because she lost a sock on the highway, just casually, because that happens to everyone all the time. And when processing her, they found that they had multiple phones. I didn't seem to find any information about this. Most of them weren't working. They didn't know which of them belonged to, if they had any calls on them or anything like that. honestly, I couldn't find anything about these phones, but it was just a weird point in the case that a lot of people questioned. Because of their mental state and seemingly superhuman strength, blood work had been done on both the twins, and that came back to say that they hadn't been drinking and there weren't any drugs in their system, which literally shocked everyone. How on earth did it take 6 people to restrain her? And also, how on earth were they still fighting back even after being both struck by vehicles at 60 miles per hour and obviously having to be in a lot of pain? It just, like, how does that even happen? How do you get thrown into the air by a car at 60 miles per hour, not get injured at all, and still be fighting with police after being knocked unconscious?
My sister got hit by a car.
Oh, yeah?
When she was at school. And she got thrown up in the air, landed on the floor. She got up and walked away. She was fine. It was like the wildest thing.
That's crazy.
It wasn't at 60 miles an hour. It was like on a residential road.
Yeah, it's just, very strange. But nothing in their blood work. No drugs, no alcohol, nothing like that. So the next day, while in custody at the police station, Sabina pleaded guilty to trespassing on a motorway and assaulting a police officer. She was charged and sentenced to 1 day, but since she'd already spent the night at the station, it was considered that she'd already served her sentence, so she was released. That was that. Upon release, when she was being processed for release, she said to the officer...
They sentenced her to 1 day?
Yeah. Yeah, 1 day. And then they were like, yeah, you've done it, great.
They are obviously like, we don't have time for this. We do not have time for your nonsense.
Yeah, that is one theory, and then there's other theories that have kind of said this is a cover-up, but we'll come to that. But upon release, she said to the officer, in Sweden, we always say that an accident rarely comes alone. Usually 1 or more follows, perhaps 2. And nobody did anything. Nobody thought, wow, that's really weird. That almost sounds like a threat. Like, they just let her go. And the fact that that was written down and that was reported...
It's like when people say bad things happen in 3s.
Yeah. I don't know. I just don't... It just seems really sinister to me. But still, no mental health evaluation was carried out. Absolutely nothing. And some people would even describe this as a suicide attempt. So...
Yeah, that's how I'm looking at it. I'm actually looking at it as like this woman, or both of these women, are in an absolute state of psychotic break. Like they desperately need help. And we're just going, all right, crack on. See, like off into traffic you go. It's literally saying go play in traffic.
Yeah, and because the thing is that when somebody's suicidal, are there not laws around being on suicide watch and things like that and being monitored for a certain amount of time and those kinds of things? You would think.
But you would also think that in this situation that they'd have a psychiatric evaluation in the hospital.
Yeah, exactly, but nothing.
Before they could be deemed okay to be arrested. Did she not say anything about why it happened when she was arrested? Was she not like, oh, we did this because...
No, they got nothing from them. Absolutely nothing. Which also, like, I don't know if they just didn't ask them, or maybe... Honestly, I've no idea. I couldn't find anything about that. Nothing at all. Okay, right.
And how much longer before this is the dead guy?
So she was released on the 19th of May, and he was murdered on the 20th.
Oh, Jesus.
So this is when it starts overlapping a little bit. So on the 19th of May, she was allowed to leave the station with her belongings in a plastic bag, which was a laptop and £1,000 in cash. That was a bug, sorry.
That's quite a lot.
That is a lot of money in cash to just be carrying around. That's not like a small amount of money.
That's Sabina. Where's Ursula? Still in hospital, I hope.
She's still in hospital. Obviously, both of her legs were crushed, so she's still in hospital. So Sabina started wandering the local streets of Stoke-on-Trent, trying to find her sister, who was obviously still in hospital. And this is when she came across 2 men walking a dog. She shouted over to comment on their cute dog and asked if they knew of any B&Bs nearby, anywhere for her to stay, for her to check in at. I tried for the life of me to find out what kind of dog they were walking, but I couldn't find the information anywhere because that is the most important part of this case, but nothing, which is slightly annoying, but we move on.
Is the dog okay?
The dog is okay.
Right, so it's fine.
The two men were Glenn Hollinshead and his friend, Peter Malloy. Glenn took pity on Sabina when she explained that she was trying to find her twin sister that was in hospital, and he told her that there weren't really any places to stay nearby, so he invited her back to his house so that he could help her. Glenn's friend said that this was perfectly normal. He was a helpful guy. He used to be in the, I don't know, I think the RAF or something like that, and he was just a good egg, a good citizen. So they all went back to Glenn's house. This is Glenn, Peter, and now Sabina. And they pretty much immediately started noticing some odd behaviour from Sabina. She would constantly get up to look out of the window and peer up and down the street as if she was super, super paranoid that someone was following her. At one point, she offered them both a cigarette. They both took it, and then she snatched it back off of them, shouting, saying that they might be poisoned. But she had also been smoking. No. She had also been smoking from that same packet herself. That same day, the whole time that they'd known them. What were you going to say?
It sounds really horrible, but I do think there is an element when people are like this, in this kind of mental breakdown phase, or, you know, like clearly experiencing psychotic behaviour, the kindest thing to do at that point is to call the police.
Yeah.
Like, because you don't know what they're going to say. Like, I mean, she might accuse him of something. Do you know what I mean? She might, and I get that there's being helpful. Poor man. Poor man.
I know.
Like, he tried. They tried.
Really did. Well, they thought that she was paranoid because she was running from an abusive ex, and that's why she was...
That makes sense. I can see that,
displaying all of this weird behaviour, and she was a bit paranoid,
I can see that. I just, I'd be just so nervous to... Did I tell you when I was walking down the road and all of a sudden I heard someone like meowing?
A person?
I heard like meow, meow.
No.
And the dog was being weird. Like I was walking Arlo and he was like, what is going on? And I looked up and there was a man with nothing on his bottoms, just in like a shirt, hanging on outside of a window. Now, you would, like, my immediate thought was, he's sleeping with someone he shouldn't be sleeping with, and they've come, like, someone's come home and he's had to climb out the window, so why are you meowing, you weirdo? Mm-hmm. But no, it turns out he was somebody who was having a mental breakdown and was like, yeah.
Did you call the police?
No, I ran away.
We literally just said that the best thing for these people is to call the police. And
Okay, but at that point, his penis was not too far, like, in my eyesight, like eye line. I wanted to get away from that situation as fast as possible.
Uh-huh.
But then, obviously, we know someone who lives there. So as soon as I got in the house, I quickly called them, was like, look outside your window, this is going on, what should I do? And she was like, don't worry, 4 of my neighbours have already called the police. So I was, like, planning to call the police once I was safe. I just didn't end up calling the police because she was like, no, 4 of my neighbours have already put into our, like, street WhatsApp that they've called the police and the police are on their way and they're aware of what's happening.
That is terrifying.
But while he was hanging from the window above me with his, like, penis and balls all flapping around in the wind, I wasn't hanging around to see anything else.
Yeah, no, that's probably for the best. That was probably.
And he was meowing at me.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair enough. You did the right thing.
Yeah.
So with all this weird behaviour, Peter eventually left. He said that he had enough. And so Glenn was left with Sabina to try and find her sister. Sabina stayed overnight. The next day, Glenn called his brother. So Glenn's brother worked in a hospital, so he tried to call his brother to see if he could get any information. He was also calling around other hospitals of doctors' surgeries, things like that, trying to gather as much information as he possibly could. In the evening, around 7:40, Glenn was preparing dinner, and he went outside to ask his neighbour, Frank, if he had any spare tea bags. Frank was, you know, he's so cute. Frank was washing his car and he said that he'd bring some over once he'd finished up with his car, so Glenn went back inside. However, less than a minute later, Frank looked up to see Glenn stumbling outside of his house, clutching his chest and saying, "She stabbed me." Yeah. Apparently, his last words to his neighbour were, "Look after my dog for me."
no!
Which,
That's
I mean,
what you would say if you
same,
died.
same, exactly, 100% I would. But that's how I know that the dog's okay, because I'm hoping that Frank took care of him. Him, her, I'm not sure. So the next part of the story,
I feel like you'd have a little girl dog, like a cockapoo.
Oh, that would be so cute.
Yeah. I think like a little goldeny cockapoo. Maybe like a Yorkie, or actually, something small and floofy like that.
Yeah, something that would like curl up on his lap and just sit there while he's reading or watching the telly.
Yeah.
Cute. So the next part of the story we kind of already know. Frank, the neighbour, called the police, and Sabina bolted from Glenn's house, hitting herself over the head with a hammer as she went. A man named...
Oh, so we do know it was a hammer now?
Yes. At the time, people just kind of said some kind of a weapon. Some people were saying axe, some people were saying hammer. But it was kind of like people that were driving past or walking past. So you just see someone covered in blood, you notice that they've got a weapon, and you just call the police and go in the opposite direction.
How many phone calls do you reckon the police got about that day?
I don't have it open here. Give me one second.
I reckon it was so many.
Because I did get I found a whole report about the whole thing, but I don't think it said exactly how many there were. No, it doesn't say specifically how many. It just says, we have reports of a stabbing, offenders still on scene, and then further 999 call, females by the roundabout, covered in blood, hammer in her hand. Several reports from members of public to officers reporting a female with an axe.
Wild.
But this was all over the space of... So the stabbing was at 1951. That's when the report came through. And then all of the reports were from then to 1956.
I'm like, what bitch? She drank all his tea and then she killed him.
And it was 1956 that there was a report of her jumping off the bridge. So it was all in a super quick time frame.
5 minutes, yeah.
And within these five minutes, she also came across a man named Joshua Grattage, and he saw her hitting her head, tried to stop her from hitting herself with the hammer, but she took a piece of broken roof tile from her pocket, hit him over the head, stunned him, and he didn't die, thank goodness, but basically stunned him enough for her to be able to run away. And then that's when she eventually jumped off the bridge 40 foot down onto the A50, where she broke both of her ankles. So both sisters soon made a full recovery and were discharged in September of the same year. Ursula, we know she eventually returned to Sweden and then eventually back to the US. She was never formally charged with any crime. But Sabina was arrested and charged with the murder of Glenn Hollinshead. Sabina eventually pleaded guilty to manslaughter with diminished responsibility, and her lawyers told the court that Sabina suffered from a rare psychiatric disorder which made her hear voices. I don't know if you remember in the last case of the Folie à Deux, where...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where basically it was shared psychotic disorder. That's actually where I found this case, because when I was researching that and Folie à Deux came up, this one also came up. So they thought that she suffered from Folie à Deux, and it was that her sister, who was the primary sufferer of these delusions, but when her sister went to visit Sabina in Ireland, that was when Sabina started suffering with it as well, and then that's when they travelled to England together on this weird kind of psychotic mission.
Right.
Yes, exactly. But obviously, neither of them had a psychiatric evaluation at the time of the original incident, so when they were both together. And I don't think, from what I could find, they had any after the fact either. So by the time they did start to do psychiatric evaluations, they said that they were both perfectly normal and healed and of sane mind. Both psychiatrists for the defence and the prosecution agreed that she was clinically insane at the time of the crime. However, she was sane at the time of the trial. So apparently the judge found it really hard for sentencing, because although she was found guilty of manslaughter, and it was obviously a senseless attack, she was no longer a threat, and they said that her culpability for her behaviour was low. So she was suffering from delusions at the time, which she believed to be true, but because it resolved itself quickly and she was no longer of that state of mind, they couldn't sentence her to a psychiatric facility, but they also couldn't really sentence her to like a life sentence. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. They're stuck.
Exactly. So what do you think she would have been sentenced with?
She pled guilty with diminished responsibility to murder,
Manslaughter.
manslaughter. So, did she get like 8 years?
She got 5 years, and she
Wow.
served 3 of them and was released in 2011.
Thing is, I'm really struggling with this one
Yeah.
because it's quite clear from any angle that something is happening here. She was massively failed by the system.
Yeah. And so was Glenn.
She was in, yeah, but she was like, they were both, that both the sisters were seen in a hospital, spoken to by police, and nothing was done. And Glenn was just being a good guy. That's why you can't help people.
Anyway, so despite being convicted, it was never discovered why. Why they ran out onto the motorway, why they were in England to begin with, and why she stabbed Glenn. They never discovered what happened in those moments before Glenn's death. And when questioned, Sabina only ever responded with no comment, no comment, no comment, and never gave any explanation as to what was going through her head. Since then, they've disappeared. They pretty much disappeared off the face of the earth, and nobody is aware of their current whereabouts. There's no record of where they are, what they're doing, if they have any other convictions. Absolutely nothing. And that's pretty much it for the story.
What about Sabina's husband and the children?
Nothing. We didn't hear of anything. There was no reports on them or if she went back to them or back to Sweden, or if Sabina and Ursula ever saw each other again. There are some people believe that they were embroiled on some kind of drug smuggling ring, and that there are also reports to say that Glenn actually suffered injuries from 2 different weapons, which indicate there would have been 2 different assailants, but Sabina was the only one ever charged, and these injuries were never explained, which is why people think that there was something more to it, and that maybe the drug smuggling had something to do with that. But then nobody was ever seen leaving the house. These same theories say that they think that Sabina and Ursula were under police observation even long before the incident on the M6, and that's why it's been covered up, because if they were under police observation, then really they could be held responsible for Glenn's murder because they didn't intervene.
I think they can be held responsible anyway.
Well, yeah, I agree. And then others are saying that they think that they were victims of satanic ritual abuse. And were under mind control, because it's apparently a severe form of abuse of children, adolescents, and adults, involving the use of rituals or ceremonial abuse.
They always go back to satanic cults, and do you know what? It is hardly ever satanic cults.
Yeah. Oh, obviously. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different conspiracy theories going around. There's so many different people talking about what it could and couldn't have been, but there's obviously a lot more to it than
I don't think so.
But I mean, so the thing that gets me with this is that a lot of sources have been deleted as well. You know, when you're searching and people say, "Oh, this is the link to my sources for this," a lot of those pages have been removed, and also a lot of the videos have been taken down as well. I cannot for the life of me find the original footage of this BBC documentary. And so a lot of the sources that I've been reading cannot necessarily be verified, which is why some of it is a little bit patchy. So that's the only reason that makes me think, well, then why? Why can we not find out about this? But I don't know if it could be because Glenn's family are asking for further investigations. So perhaps they've taken all of it down to protect the ongoing investigation. But I couldn't find anything further. The last thing that I could find was that Sabina was released from prison in 2011, and that was that.
I think that they know they messed up. I think that the prosecution couldn't push for more, because if they'd pushed for more and it had been obvious that she'd had a psychotic break where she was seen by a number of medical professionals and police, and they had failed to do anything, then essentially they have failed to keep society safe.
Yeah.
Because she could have been, I'm guessing, and I am not an expert, in the way that she was, I reckon she could have been sectioned under the Mental Health Act based on her behaviour, which could have meant that because she was a danger to either herself or to the public, of which she was both. Now, that is not placing blame on her because she was clearly going through a mental break. But then, why are you laughing at me? Then, if they hadn't done that, then they are responsible.
Yeah. So that is something else that I found as well, actually, that I hadn't put in here for some reason. But there was some, so like I said, that if you remember, I was saying about the traffic cops documentary and they were filming literally everything. Apparently they got on camera that the police officers were talking about sectioning them under the Mental Health Act, but for some reason that didn't happen. So they apparently actually asked the documentary makers to remove that part of the footage so that it wasn't, they couldn't be blamed for all of the wrongdoings. But
I could honestly run law.
You really could. You could just run the world. But I still just
don't
understand
where lots of places
why.
In the world are.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, you know where the hot, warm places are, and that's what's important.
I know where the Candle Isle of TK Maxx is.
But yeah, I want to know why.
Like,
what was going through her head when...
Well, she could have heard voice. Like, she might not know anymore. It could have been that, like, you know, these paranoid thoughts, and you've got someone who's being unnecessarily kind, and that's not to, like, throw shade at him, but there is an element of, like, she could be like, oh my God, he's in on it, whatever it is, and therefore she does that.
Has to protect herself, yeah.
And I think it's tragic all round, but I actually don't feel that the blame can solely lie on her. I think that there is a huge amount of culpability that needs to be attributed to the professionals in this situation.
Yeah.
And definitely. They obviously know that they messed up. They know that they messed up. Otherwise, she would have gone to prison for a lot longer, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But yeah, no, that is the story of the Eriksson twins.
That was freaking weird.
Very weird, wasn't it?
Yeah,
but
that was so weird.
Not as deep as the last few that we've had. So yeah.
Thanks for that, chicken. Happy Friday. Go and follow us on absolutely everything. We are 26tolive_pod on YouTube and Spotify. We are 26tolivepod on Instagram and TikTok. And thanks so much. We hit 500 views the other day, and that was like, oh my life.
Yeah, that was huge.
We know it doesn't sound like a lot to some people, but to us it is massive. Do you remember when we celebrated 30?
Yeah. Oh, cute.
Cute. We're so cute. All right, chicken. I love you.
I love you too. I will speak to you later.
Bye.
Bye.